Hi everyone, so we are going to be getting started with our new chapter today, and that is chapter 8, solving equations, and today we're going to be focusing on solving one-step equations. So as we go through these notes, you should be following along in your guided notes on OneNote, filling in things where I fill them in, and there's also going to be some opportunities for you to kind of answer some questions, try some problems on your own, and then we'll kind of get back together tomorrow and go over everything. So a couple vocab terms first. The first one we have is equation, and an equation is a mathematical sentence containing an equal sign. And then when we go into actually solving equations, what we're going to do is use inverse operations to solve for a variable in the equation. Once we solve, we end up with our solution, and that is the number that produces a true statement when substituted in for the variable. So it's the number that we would plug back into the equation that would give us a true statement. So we just mentioned inverse operations, so now we're going to go in and kind of talk a little bit about what those actually are and what they look like and how we use them. So our goal when we're solving equations is to isolate the variable or to get the variable by itself. And we do that using the inverse operations that I mentioned above. And inverse operations are just operations that undo each other. So we have our four main operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Addition undoes subtraction, and subtraction undoes addition. So if I'm adding something, to get rid of it, I subtract. If I'm subtracting something, to get rid of it, I add. Same concept applies to multiplication and division. If I'm multiplying something, I divide to get rid of it. If I'm dividing something, I multiply to get rid of it. Now, using inverse operations, we want to make sure that we are following what we call our golden rule. And that is whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other. This is the most important rule when we're solving equations. It's the one that we need to make sure we are always following and the one that we always remember. So we're going to go through, we're going to do 6 practice problems together, and then you guys are going to go ahead and try 6 on your own, and I'll talk about what that will look like. So for this first one, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can just focus in here. On number 1, I am trying to get x by itself. I want to isolate the variable, which means I need to deal with this 9 that is being added onto the x. So I'm going to use my inverse operations. If I have addition, to undo that, to get rid of it, I want to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 9 from that side. But our golden rule says whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. So over here, I'm going to subtract 9. What's good is positive 9 minus 9 cancels, which is what we want. We're left with x on that side, right? And if we kind of bring our equal sign down, negative 3 minus 9 is going to be negative 12. So our answer is x minus 12. Moving on to number 2. Again, our goal is to isolate this variable, and we have this minus 11 that's happening here. So in order to undo subtraction, I want to do addition. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add 11. Golden rule says what we do to one side, we must do to the other. So I'm going to add 11 over here as well. Bring our equal sign down. 23 plus 11 is 34. That is equal to, we are just left with y. So y equals 34 would be our answer. Over here in number 3, again, our goal is to get p by itself. So in order to do that, if you notice, I have this negative 15. I know there's addition, but since I have a negative here, this is going to act as subtraction. So in order to undo subtraction, I want to use addition. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. Cancels out over here, and I am left with p. Bring down the equal sign is equal to 28. So let's move on to number 4. Over here, number 4, I have 9 times t is equal to 36. I want to get the variable by itself, Remember, whenever we have a number and a variable next to each other, that is multiplication in between. So in order to undo multiplication, I would divide. So I will divide both sides by 9, because whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. The 9s will cancel, and I would be left with t. Bring down the equal sign. 36 divided by 9 is 4. Over here in number 5, this x is being divided by -8. I want to get x alone. So in order to do that, to undo division, I'm going to multiply by -8. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. The -8s will cancel. I would be left with x. Bring down the equal sign is equal to -10 times -8, which is positive 80. Last one we're going to do together. Again, we have y that we want to get alone. The -2 is multiplying it. So to undo multiplication, we're going to use division. So I'm actually going to divide both sides by -2. The -2's will cancel. -8 divided by -2 is positive 40. Bring down the equal sign. That is equal to y. So that would be our answer. So now I want you to take these concepts and I want you to apply them to numbers 1 through 6. We're going to go through and I'll show you the answer for each one of them. And then we'll really kind of spend some time reviewing them when we're back together tomorrow. So go ahead and pause your video right now. Try number 1 and then we'll come back for each one just so you can see the answers before moving on. Here is your answer to number 1. Pause if you need to, and then you can move on to number 2. Here's the answer for number 2. Here's the work for number 3. Here's your work for number 4. Here's your work for number 5. Lastly, here's your work for number 6. So if you had problems with any of those, you can pause again, look at the work that I did, and then we'll spend some time in class tomorrow going over any problems that you still struggled with. Thanks so much, everyone.